human beings have the capacity for moral reasoning. They have ethics. They have community. They have loved ones. And that plays a part in their decision making. Whereas corporations, they need to push that aside in favor of profit. Now, they also don't have the foresight that we have. You know, a quick profit is what they're after. Now, regarding Citizens United, corporations can now dump unlimited amounts of money into campaign ads. And this really affects who's going to be elected. It's flooding the media with the information that they want the public to see. And for the rest of us who might not agree, if you don't have the money, you're not going to be part of the process. So they're really affecting the outcomes of elections and policy. And the candidate who gets into office is going to be the one who suits that agenda. And so whoever has the most money and influence sets forth policy for the rest of us. Basically, it's buying off government. And how am I going to be heard? Through that din of misinformation. How am I going to be heard without lobbyists? Now, as we look at all of the issues that are facing us, how does this fit into the equation of each issue? You know, there's numerous examples. It's a pervasive problem. Corporate personhood affects pretty much every issue that we're looking at. For an example, Monsanto. Monsanto's a person. It has First Amendment rights not to speak, which means Monsanto does not have to label and disclose genetically modified ingredients. That's Monsanto and exec actually said, and I quote, "Monsanto should not have to vouchsafe the safety of biotech food. Our interest is in selling as much of it as possible. Assuring safety is the FDA's job." Now, the problem of this is that a lot of former Monsanto employees are now in the FDA, in the EPA. They are now directors in the very regulatory agencies that are supposed to be overseeing this, protecting our health. And that's what their money, that's what their lobbying has done. So what we're looking at basically is we have an oligarchy. We don't have a say. They have the power and influence and are working really closely with government now. Corporate personhood is also a disaster for environmental protection. The Fourth Amendment offers protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. And somehow that translates into corporations being able to avoid surprise inspections. Agencies have to have a warrant, and they also have to let these places know that they're going to be coming by pretty far in advance. So health hazards and other things can actually be hidden before they get there. And it makes it really hard for anything to stand up in court. Now, if a corporation is shut down or if the government denies them use of land or resources that they've purchased, then the government actually has to pay them. They have to be compensated not only for the value of the land, but also for whatever profit that they may have made. And that has to do with the Fifth Amendment right to private property. The paradigm in our society for the last 150 years has been economic growth at any cost. I say the cost is getting too damn high. We have technology to implement alternative energy, yet we're stuck with fracking, drilling, mining, and now maybe tar sands. The law that may allow Zimmerman to avoid charges for shooting Trayvon. That law was actually ghostwritten by ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. A lot of corporate money, a lot of corporate influence. And they called it the Castle Doctrine Act instead of the Stand Your Ground Act. ALEC also influenced voter ID laws. They influence health and safety issues. They're very concerned with privatizing and profiting off what used to be public services. If we hope to make a lasting, permanent change, we need to change the power structure. And that's the goal of Move to Amend. We're calling for an amendment that will do a few things. First and foremost, we want to abolish corporate personhood. Say only human beings, natural persons, have rights under the Constitution. Also, money is not speech. We need to guarantee the right to vote and participate, but also guarantee that the votes and the participation actually matter, that count. We need to protect local communities against control and domination by large corporations and entities like World Bank. And no, this isn't going to be easy. It's a huge issue. And really the cards are not stacked in our favor. The game is rigged. So it takes all of us if there are enough of us. And if we keep calling out the powers that be and we keep speaking the truth, then we can enact change. That's the only way it's going to happen. Now, Move to Men Grand Rapids, we have a petition. Now, this is specifically for the city of Grand Rapids because the strategy is to start at the community level and push this through, starting with all of our towns, all of our cities, and getting everybody involved. So more and more cities are adopting resolutions to say that no, corporations are not people, money's not free speech. Now, our petition is only for Grand Rapids citizens, so, but if there's anybody who lives in Grand Rapids, in the city, if you'd like to sign the petition, that would be great. And we're also really in need of circulators to help get these things out.
Why is it only a city-wide petition?
That's where we're starting. We're starting with the city of Grand Rapids. Now, Move to Amend is actually a national movement. Now, if you go to movetoamend.org, there's a petition there that's kind of more of a national petition. But I think the strategy is just kind of go at it from all sides.
Right.
You know, really get the information out.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One, we have made some copies from a website, probably that one you mentioned, that gives us a piece of paper that we can collect names on to take to our city commission and say, look at all the people that want to have this resolution. And it isn't a petition, it's just a list of names, you know, like the Debbie Stabenow list that was in the other room. Okay, so that's about all we know how to do, and then we realize that the people that sign it have to be actual city residents. So can you suggest a way to bring attention to that, to locate ourselves? Yeah?
Oh. Well,
That's my first
there's
question.
a couple different ways to do this. Like, we have kind of a plan A and a plan B. Now, with this particular petition, it's for a ballot resolution, so we need to get like 20,000 signatures by July. It's a really tall order.
Where did you get yours, and how did it get written?
We actually put this together ourselves, and we took it to the city clerk to have it okay. There's a lot of, there's a lot of particulars to look at. Luckily, we had.
So you don't need to go to your city commission yet. You already.
Right, you can't formulate the petition, then you have to have it okayed.
What she's talking about is actually the easiest way to start it. If you get like 500 signatures, and you can get, some of these city commissions are ready to do this. If you can do it that way, that's the easiest way to do it than to start there. Because if you start simply by just going to your local politicians and saying, do you believe in this? They may sign on themselves.
They can put it on the ballot.
They can put it on themselves.
All right.
So that would be the smart place to start, because if you, I'm hoping that you guys already did that.
We did.
Tried
we approached
that
them and they said
But
to
you're
start
in the land of
here.
DeVos and what else? is
Well,
up
our
there?
city just repealed the prevailing wage, so they're not all super kind.
Well, then it all depends on what your local government's like.
But we want to do it this way. All the other cities that have done to amend have done it that way. started out that
who
way.
have actually like gotten it.
Well,
on
you've
the
got some of
ballot.
these governments that
Um,
stepped forward and just said, "Hey, we don't believe in this. We're passing it here right now." They didn't even wait,
But nobody has gotten it on the ballot through petition signing, through essentially the voice of the mass people.
Well, in
They've gotten
California,
it-
their local government said no, corporations are not people. They've already done that out there in a couple places.
Well, but the way that it got
Yeah.
on the ballot wasn't through petition signing. And so Grand Rapids wants to start there. If for some reason we can't, which, I mean, it is a tall order, then there is that option to go back after a certain amount of signatures and say, hey, we've already gotten this many people who want this. What can we, can you help us? And our city commission has been pretty good to work with us so far. So.
And the way I look at it, just in the very act of every person who we approach, every person that we talk to, and we say, hey, do you know about the Citizens United case? Do you know that these rights are being afforded to these entities? And just by having that conversation, we're growing the movement and we're spreading awareness. So, and that's an integral part of that too. And even if we don't manage through getting a particular number of signatures, I know we can get enough where we can approach the city and say, obviously, this is an important issue. It needs to be addressed. Need to make a statement.
I have some questions, but I preface it by saying I'm not opposed to the approach. I'm just trying to understand. Because what we're talking about here ultimately is a change to the U.S. Constitution. How does having local city, either by petition or by city council declaring it, how does that tie into the process of getting it into the form of a constitutional amendment?
Well, obviously, cities and towns aren't going to directly affect the Constitution. What it does is it builds momentum, and it builds from the city level to the state level, and then from the state level, then we can really go somewhere. So
Because I
that's
know you have a long
Stand your
range.
pressure.
This is a 2014 campaign.
and this is kind of, we're going to work at it until it's done.
And then at some point in time, we go through a more formal ratification process with each of the states.
Right.
Okay.
Right now, we're trying to garner support from individual cities, from communities, and really build awareness, because there are still a lot of people out there who don't understand, or there's a lot of misinformation. The interesting thing is how corporations are given the right to exist. They're given charter through our government. Now, the government is held accountable by the people. So really, corporations should then be held accountable to the people.
Here, here.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you're changing the Constitution.
There's nowhere in the Constitution is a corporation.
Corporation is not mentioned, but the Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled that they are people and given them rights.
What the final goal will be a new section of the Bill of Rights which will say corporations are not persons and are not entitled to constitutional rights. That's the bottom line. It's like the Equal Rights Amendment that died. If we, down in the lower levels, put enough pressure on the state levels, the state are going to have to work on putting this in as a constitutional amendment to the United States Congress. I mean, on the United States Constitution.
I hear from various people various numbers as to the number of resolutions that are in the U.S. Congress already to this effect. And I know that the Athens, Ohio City Council passed unanimously a resolution supporting such a constitutional amendment. And I know that those who were working to get that through the council did, as one of their means, bring to the council members copies of some of those resolutions in the U.S. Congress. So they were working both from underneath and, by suggestion at any rate, from the top down. And I'm wondering if that's an effective strategy. It did prove to be so in Athens, Ohio.
Yep, and that's, that is, as on the national level, move to amend is suggesting that strategy where you kind of go from both sides. You garner support from the community and the people, and then also
because eventually the
city
amendment
commissioners.
does have to originate from the
The city
Congress
council.
and then has to be passed by the states. So you do have to kind of work from both sides at the same time. And I think you're right to concentrate on a community level working towards a state level, but also working from a congressional level at the same time, and trying to bring those together at
in
the
the
local
middle.
level.
Well, isn't the challenge basically that there's no direct way for the people to cause a constitutional amendment to happen? I mean, you can collect signatures to get a law or a bill on the ballot at the state level and it becomes a law. Whereas there's not that mechanism for a constitutional amendment. Is that kind of the basic challenge?
Right.
So the only means you have is to exert pressure or influence.
Yeah, it's eventually, there has to be enough of an outcry where, they say this has to happen, there has to be that much support.
So where does the number of 20,000 signatures come from?
It just has to do with the amount of registered voters, and then that we have in the city of Grand Rapids, minus however
Is that
many that might
10%
get thrown
or
out.
5% or
It's 12%.
12%?
Yeah, and then plus quite a few that might get thrown out. So it
Right.
kind of
You have to expect when you're
yeah.
circulating a petition that
We
probably
overshot a
half
little
will be
bit.
thrown out.
Yeah. And then you have to make a little room for people who are yet to be registered.
Right.
So
Right. One way to help with that is obviously, as you probably already, I'm sure, well aware, is making sure that your circulators are getting registered voters only.
absolutely, and we have a nice set of instructions here. So yeah, and we actually we're planning some circulation training sessions coming up. Not only to let people know, what can be on here, who can sign. And just be really careful with that. And it's like, don't just set this down and let anybody sign it, because it's not going to be worth very much then. But also to help people approach other people and talk to them and introduce the topic. But I have to, like I said, I do have to go to work. And is there anyone who's in Grand Rapids who might want to sign this? Fine. Sign. All right. Well, thank you all for listening.
I think one of the important things that move to amend, move to amend is a big umbrella organization, and there are a lot of organizations involved with them that work on keeping state elections, national elections, secretaries of state around the country playing fair and not disenfranchising people, changing laws so that felons can vote, and on and on and on. So this is part of a big movement to keep elections fair and to keep elections open and to keep people on the ballot. And as occupiers, I often find that people dismiss elections But as the Republicans like to say, elections do matter. And it's important to focus on keeping the elections safe, keeping people on the rolls, and keeping the secretaries of state from stealing elections again. Even if we don't like the Democrats, there are things that do change when elections happen.